Welcome back to Live Now from Fox, and good morning to you if you're just now tuning in. On this Friday, we are following breaking news, learning 2 U.S. soldiers and 1 former soldier are charged with selling U.S. Army secrets to China. Fox's David Detling has the latest information.
2 active duty U.S. soldiers stationed at Joint Base Lewis-McChord no longer at their posts. They are behind bars accused of working with the Chinese government.
This is the result of a long-running investigation where the FBI and our partners were able to uncover a conspiracy to steal national defense information from military installations here in the Pacific Northwest.
The FBI naming those 2 JBLM soldiers as Jian Zhao and Tian. They, along with Ruoyu Duan, a former U.S. soldier in Oregon, were arrested Thursday. All of them are accused of violating their duties to protect sensitive military information by selling it to China.
The information that is at risk here is information that identifies the United States military's capabilities, plans and intentions, and could really put us at a severe disadvantage if that were to fall in the wrong hands for an adversary.
According to this FBI press release, all 3 had access to highly sensitive information, which upon sale, they gained roughly $15,000, giving China access to classified hard drives, a stolen encryption-capable computer, along with other sensitive military information. The FBI stating this threat to national security ended following a 1.5-year long investigation.
Luckily, our investigators are pretty well versed in these types of investigations, but it does pose a challenge.
And it's still unclear how much information was transmitted to China. FBI saying that during its investigation, it tried mitigating any losses. Meantime, charges against the 3 will now go to a special prosecutor. In Seattle, Dave Detling, Fox News.
All right, Dave, thank you so much for that detailed report. And as we further discuss the latest information, FBI Director Kash Patel putting this statement out on X this Friday morning, saying, quote, "I can now report that today the FBI, along with our interagency partners led by Pam Bondi, arrested 2 active duty U.S. Army soldiers and 1 former U.S. Army soldier for theft of government property and a bribery scheme." He goes on to say these individuals have been charged with stealing America's defense intelligence capabilities and empowering adversaries like China in betrayal of our country. They will now face American justice. Also on X this morning on the FBI page, this also from Kash Patel, it says, quote, "While bribery and corruption have thrived under China's Communist Party, this behavior cannot be tolerated with our service members who are entrusted with sensitive military information, including national defense information." It goes on to say the FBI and our partners will continue to work to uncover attempts by those in China to steal sensitive U.S. military information and hold all accountable who play a role in betraying our national defense. That coming from the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, as well. Again, this on the FBI X page. This is a developing situation, so make sure to stay tuned to Live Now from Fox for the latest information.
2 U.S. Army soldiers are under arrest in Washington state, suspected of trying to sell sensitive government information to buyers in China. Charlie.The has the latest on that.
This image is alleged to show active duty Army Sergeant Jian Zhao taking photos of classified material. According to court documents, he told one of his co-conspirators, "Very sensitive document, super difficult to get." Stationed at Joint Base Lewis-McChord in Washington state, Zhao stands accused of selling the materials to agents operating in China, including 20 hard drives, for which he was allegedly offered at least $10,000. Another active duty soldier and 1 former soldier were also charged. The classified material is said to include intelligence on high-mobility artillery rocket systems, or HIMARS, Bradley and Stryker fighting vehicles, and America's overall military readiness in the event of a conflict with China. It's a case that reflects a growing threat revealed in a CBS News investigation: China's online recruitment of American active duty service members as spies. Jim Axelrod spoke to Kevin Vorndran, the head of the FBI's counterintelligence division.
Are they operating at another level from either, compare them to Russia or Iran? Is China that much more of a threat in this particular area?
Based on scale, yes, because the scale of their intelligence services is so significant that it outnumbers other adversaries on the board.
In a statement, Attorney General Pamela Bondi said the defendants will face swift, severe, and comprehensive justice. Federal law enforcement have told us in the last 2 years they've identified around a dozen cases of China recruiting members of the U.S. military to spy.
Charlie.D'Agata at the Pentagon tonight. Thank you.
Now to the alleged plot to steal sensitive military national defense secrets and sell them to China. Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas is in Washington with more. Good morning, Pierre.
Michael, good morning. Active duty soldiers and an Army veteran charged in an espionage scheme involving China. The FBI says this is Jian Zhao secretly taking photographs of sensitive materials. Prosecutors say Zhao, a supply sergeant stationed at Joint Base Lewis-McChord in Washington state, received thousands of dollars in exchange for selling an encrypted military computer and 20 hard drives, some classified as secret and top secret. Overnight, Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel describing the stolen secrets as involving America's defense and intelligence capabilities. Another soldier was charged with sharing with a former soldier documents about the Army's Bradley and Stryker armored vehicles. All three men were arrested Thursday and charged with conspiring to commit robbery and theft of government property. Rebecca?
You just see the value of information there. Okay, Pierre, thank you. Okay, so Teresa, very concerning story that we want to ask you about as well, involving national security. An active duty U.S. Army sergeant has been charged with repeatedly selling sensitive military and national defense secrets to co-conspirators working on behalf of China. His name is Jian Zhao, and federal prosecutors are saying that he was attempting to sell an encrypted military computer and 20 classified hard drives. And separately, 2 other arrests were made involving an active duty soldier and a former soldier being accused of trying to share sensitive information. Attorney General Pam Bondi released this statement saying the defendants arrested today are accused of betraying our country, actively working to weaken America's defense capabilities, and empowering our adversaries in China. They will face swift, severe, and comprehensive justice. And just one other thing I want to mention is that China's embassy just posted on X, if war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or another type of war, we are ready to fight till the end.
Yeah, this is very concerning, and I'm very saddened to hear this about our U.S. soldiers because so many of them are patriotic. You know, they put themselves in harm's way, leave their families every day to put themselves in harm's way. So this is unfortunate. We'll have to see more as the investigation continues. But what I do know is that the selling of trade secrets and conspiring with other actors that shouldn't have this information, this happened prior to the Trump administration. So this happens in every administration, unfortunately. People get turned. But what I do know is that all federal employees and U.S. military who have access to clearance, have a clearance and have access to classified information, they go through regular training. They know what being targeted by someone looks like, and they know the process and protocols for reporting the fact that they've been targeted. And so what I would remind everyone in the U.S. military, as well as in the federal government, if you are being targeted, understand they are scamming you. They are targeting you on LinkedIn, on other social media platforms. And just remember your training, remember your protocols. And I believe that most of Americans in these tough situations, they'll do the right thing and they'll turn it in. It's just unfortunate to hear this about these soldiers.
It's happened, like you said, in every single administration since we started our country. But you do have to worry that these foreign adversaries, once they learn about the layoffs in the federal government, specifically with regard to the Pentagon, that they're trying to target these individuals because these people need to put food on the table. And it becomes that question, your honor to your country or paying your bills. And you mentioned that there are procedures and policies in place for this very moment. We'll be watching. Teresa Payton, thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
So the reason I wanted to meet with you today is to give you the opportunity to hear directly from one of their field offices that actually initiated this case, which I feel is a particularly important one because it demonstrates the pervasive nature of the threat from the government of China to our national security. But the other thing I think it demonstrates is the ability of the FBI and our partners and our determination to counter that threat. So just to summarize what you have probably read in Department of Justice's press release, earlier this morning we arrested 3 individuals here in the Pacific Northwest in both Washington and Oregon. And this is the result of a long-running investigation where the FBI and our partners were able to uncover a conspiracy to steal national defense information from military installations here in the Pacific Northwest, identify the individuals who were part of that conspiracy, and ultimately arrest them. So I think it's a very significant accomplishment in securing the Pacific Northwest, which for various reasons, due to the high prevalence of high-tech industry here, as well as key military installations and the presence of air, sea, and land borders for entry into the United States is particularly vulnerable to this threat. So it's just important that we have such a great team here in the FBI Seattle office, as well as the FBI Portland office, and our partners with Army and Counterintelligence at Joint Base Lewis-McChord, as well as Customs and Border Protection, and the Army CID and NCIS. With that said, that's just kind of a scene setter. I really just kind of wanted to give you all the opportunity to ask any questions you might have about this case. Yes, sir.
About the 2 soldiers who were based at JBLM,
right.
How long were they there? Were there any background checks done on them? When did you become aware of their spying tactics?
Right. So that's a good question. I can't get into too much details about those 2 individuals and their backgrounds. I do believe that they had security clearances, so they would have gone through a background check as part of that process. But this, like I said, is a long-running investigation that's gone on over a year and a half with ourselves and our partners to reach this point.
Were they American-born citizens, these individuals? Do they have, because I know they have ties to China, or were they American-born?
I don't know exactly the details of their backgrounds to that extent.
Can you underscore the threat actions like this have towards American security, especially this day and age? Talk about that.
Right, absolutely. And this is something that really is personal to me because before I joined the FBI, I was stationed at then Fort Lewis, now Joint Base Lewis-McChord. I was one of the soldiers that could have been endangered by this type of activity. So the information that is at risk here is information that identifies the United States military's capabilities, plans and intentions, and could really put us at a severe disadvantage if that were to fall in the wrong hands for an adversary that we might potentially end up in some sort of conflict situation with. So if that were to come to pass, then this type of information in the hands of that adversary could really put our troops at risk, as well as the national security of the entire country due to lack of advantage and military advantage there.
Where are they currently being held?
I can't just speak directly. Right. Yeah. They had their initial appearances here in the Pacific Northwest. Yes. Right. These were the two current service members served with the U.S. Army at Joint Base Lewis-McChord.
Any idea if this is going to spread wider to other people, or is this just, do you think you've got too many characters?
So as I said, we identified a conspiracy, and we identified the individuals involved in that conspiracy and arrested them. But I would emphasize that the threat from China remains particularly pervasive across multiple different domains, whether it's cyber, whether it's individuals like this who have been recruited to provide information or other means to penetrate both our intellectual property as well as our national defense information.
You said they were recruited. Were these individuals recruited? But then let's go back to my question. Were they American born? And were they recruited? Like, how do we know how they got involved with this?
Right.
Where there was money involved.
Right. Yeah, so I can't get into too much detail about the background in the initiation of the case, but what I can say is that generally in types of situations like this, what you would see is someone who has information of interest to an adversary would get small asks for stuff that sounds somewhat innocuous and harmless to provide. However, once you start providing that information and indeed receive benefits in exchange for it, then the asks get larger and larger and more important, and ultimately, someone who follows that road will end up providing pretty significant information that could be severely damaging to the national security. And at some point along that line, once you have compromised your integrity, then you are compromised. And the individual knows that as well as the adversary, and that provides them additional leverage to continue them in that recruitment cycle. I don't know of any examples right offhand. It is quite possible, but I'm not familiar with them. Yeah.
Do you have any idea of the scope of information that they were able to leak and give to China before you were able to stop?
We do have some information that we knew in advance of this morning's activities. However, part of what's involved in an action such as this is gaining additional evidence that we would then evaluate and determine what else we can find out in terms of information that could have been placed at risk.
But it is confirmed that they were able to transmit top secret information to China?
But we don't know yet that the information itself was top secret, or at least I can't confirm that at this point. However, there's reason to believe that it might have included top secret information.
If you get a conviction out of this eventually, that's going to be the best way. What would be conviction for? What would if they get sent away on what?
Right. So the current charges are conspiracy for bribery, conspiracy for theft of government property, and then one of the individuals was charged with conspiracy to provide national defense information to somebody not authorized to receive it. So that's the activity that they're currently being charged with. As I said, we've gathered additional evidence. So it is possible that other charges could be added onto that based on the evidence that we may have received.
Can you give us any information about how you were able to take them in custody, where swatted, or how did it actually happen?
Right, I can't get into operational details of how we did that, but I can confirm that we had agents out there who were able to take them into custody.
Are you able to talk about how it is that you found out that they were spies?
I can't get into the initiation of this. However, I can tell you that this has been a long-running investigation, and I would emphasize the importance of the cooperation of our partners in this, in particular the Army Counterintelligence, the commands at Joint Base Lewis-McChord, who were with us in lockstep every step of this investigation, and working with us to both advance the investigation to a point where we could take these men into custody, but also mitigate the damage along the way while we were proceeding with the investigation.
Were they taken into custody at JBLM today? Were they on base?
One of the individuals was on base.
What is, when you're talking about the overall scope of the case, what is the most challenging aspect to track down all this information and build the case before these arrests are made? What's the biggest difficulty in the job that you guys do?
Right. I would say the biggest difficulty is really kind of figuring out where all this information is, building a cohesive picture so that we can understand the full extent of a conspiracy like this. And so there are various challenges that come along with that in terms of identifying the means that these people are communicating the information, identifying exactly what the behavior is, and of course, some of the proliferation of encrypted apps, for example, that people communicate with online is an extra layer of challenge that, of course, we have to find ways to get around. Luckily, our investigators are pretty well versed in these types of investigations, but it does pose a challenge. I don't know that would be really a question for the prosecuting office.
Name and title.
My name is Mike Harrington. I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI Seattle field office.
Harrington is spelled?
Herrington. Yes. Good you asked.
Thank you.
All right.